It may be a slow week on the sports business side, but there is some high-profile sports action. The Tour de France continues, of course. Wimbledon heads into its final week. FIFA's Club World Cup down to the semifinals, with Fluminense battling Chelsea on Tuesday, Paris Saint-Germain and Real Madrid on Wednesday. The winners play in the final this coming Sunday. And this is your morning Buzzcast for Monday, July 7th. I'm Abe Madkour. Hope everybody had a safe July 4th weekend. This is a pretty light Buzzcast coming off the holiday weekend, but a few things to note. We talked about the summer of soccer, and it continues. Mexico beat the U.S. Sunday night in the CONCACAF Gold Cup final. It drew a sellout crowd, a majority of them supporting Mexico. Nearly 71,000 at NRG Stadium in Houston, and this was a strong attendance finish to an event that saw overall attendance drop from the prior edition in 2023. SBJ's Alex Silverman noted the average attendance for this summer's 22 ticketed sessions was about 24,500, down about 26% from an average of over 33,000 for the 23 Gold Cup. Remember, the event was played in a mix of NFL and MLS-sized stadiums, and it played to about 60% capacity. Overall, I just think there is so much soccer in the U.S. marketplace, as this year's Gold Cup faced competition, of course, from the Club World Cup. Both competitions in the U.S. Gold Cup matches were primarily held in the western part of the country. Club World Cup held primarily on the East Coast. So a lot of soccer inventory. It'll end this week with the Club World Cup semis and finals, but overall the CONCACAF Gold Cup final drew well on Sunday night, capping its tournament with nearly 71,000 at NRG Stadium. Let's shift over to NASCAR, which held its third street race in Chicago on Sunday. And this is the third and final year of NASCAR's contract with the city for this 4th of July weekend event. And this year's event, no rain. It was not marred by the epic rain that has impacted the first 2 years. Sunday's race ran on schedule, no problems. Meanwhile, NASCAR officials have not released a full schedule for 26, and Chicago's political leaders have not committed to bringing NASCAR back. Sure, it's possible they could sign an extension to stay in Chicago, but I'm guessing that NASCAR looks for other markets for this type of race weekend. I think, bottom line, it's been a success. What they've been able to pull off in the downtown streets of Chicago has been very impressive. But it's also very expensive to put on such a race, and I don't think the economics warrant a return to Chicago. The goal was to try something big over a big holiday weekend and draw new fans, and I do think NASCAR achieved that. We'll see what their plans are for the future. You know, a lot going on with the Washington Nationals, a lot of uncertainty. And on Sunday night, the Nats fired manager Dave Martinez and general manager Mike Rizzo. And that breaks up one of the longest partnerships in the front office in baseball. So why the change? Well, the Nationals are 37-53. They're in last place in the National League East. These two, though, Dave Martinez, Mike Rizzo, had a long run. They won the World Series in 2019, but they've also had the second worst record in baseball in the 6 seasons since. So Martinez has been 8 years with the organization. Rizzo promoted to general manager in 2009. You just don't see that kind of longevity so much in baseball anymore. I found Rizzo's text message to the Washington Post very interesting when he wrote, quote, "I had a great run, navigated that ownership group for almost 20 years, end quote. What's he referring to? Well, he is referring to the Lerner family, owners of the Nationals, who are known to be very demanding. And there has been a lot of changes at the Nationals, not just on the baseball side, but on the business side as well. A number of top business executives have departed the club. We know the Lerners had previously put the Nationals up for sale before pulling them off the market. And Nationals managing principal owner Mark Lerner said Sunday night, it's, quote, a pivotal time for our club, and we believe a fresh approach and new energy is the best course of action, end quote. So we'll see what the future holds for the Washington Nationals, but a lot of changes in that organization. The connection between the White House and the UFC, it grows even stronger. Yes, get ready for this. UFC is planning to put on an event at the White House over the next year to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. Of course, that'll be next July 4th. This comes after President Trump revealed the idea when he told a crowd in Des Moines, Iowa on Thursday that he was planning for a UFC bout on the grounds of the White House. The timing for the event is not yet clear, but Trump said he wanted to have up to 25,000 fans attend, although it's unclear how feasible that would be. But this idea is the latest indicator of how close the relationship is between Trump and Dana White. And Trump is an unabashed UFC fan. He's attended UFC events in Newark. He was in Miami in April. Now he wants to bring the UFC to the White House. You know, I am watching the WNBA CBA negotiations, and yes, it's early. And when you're early in negotiations, there's a lot of back and forth. And let's just say, so far early in this process, the players are not pleased with the WNBA's early proposals. One player called the early proposal a slap in the face. Breanna Stewart said it felt like players were being ignored and said she is absolutely frustrated with negotiations. Again, this is not all that surprising at this early stage, but we've talked about how these negotiations are going to be challenging. Players see the growth around the league. They see more and more revenue coming into the league. They understandably want a greater share of that revenue. Owners will point to nearly 30 years of losses stacking up while ownership has supported the WNBA. So that's the rub, and it won't be an easy negotiation. As a sidebar, it was noteworthy that Caitlin Clark called out the players' share of revenue from the Commissioner's Cup. Remember, that was last week. The Fever beat the Minnesota Lynx in the Commissioner's Cup final, and the players actually get more money for winning the in-season tournament than they do for winning the actual WNBA championship. Caitlin Clark said she couldn't believe that the players get more for the Commissioner's Cup and said, quote, it makes no sense. Someone tell Kathy to help us out, meaning WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. Caitlin Clark also referred to the Commissioner's Cup as the, quote, Kathy Cup. So the bottom line is, yes, players receive more revenue for winning this in-season Commissioner's Cup than they do for the overall WNBA championship. Some players don't feel that's right. That just adds to the storylines around the WNBA collective bargaining negotiations that are ongoing as we speak. And finally, a friend tried to go to F1 the movie on Saturday here in Charlotte. All theaters in the area were sold out. And that shows the financial legs this film has. And this has been a big hit for Formula One and, of course, Apple. So through 10 days of it being released, the film has grossed nearly $300 million at the global box office. That is a hit, no matter how you want to define it. The film was said to cost between $200 to $250 million to produce. Now box office return nearing $300 million after just 10 days of global release. So yes, F1 the movie has been a success for Formula One. And that is your morning Buzzcast for Monday, July 7th. I'm Abe Madkour. Thanks for listening to the Buzzcast. Stay healthy, be good to each other. I'll speak to you tomorrow.